Within a vast, mysterious universe, there spins a small planet whose dwellers debate endlessly about what is out there, and in what seems to be a genetic disposition in much of humankind, debate on a variety of topics. Sadly, much of this debate does not result in positive action. There are, however, some among us who go beyond mere talk and work to implement their convictions. Food for Thought Productions is pleased to present one such, Debra De Liso, who, in the debate on the role of prisons, punishment versus rehabilitation, comes down firmly and actively in favor of rehabilitation. Ms. De Liso invited our producer, Lee Baker, to a theatrical performance at the prison, which she developed with the women in the California Rehabilitation Center in Norco, California. Here is their report on that project.
Hello, I'm delighted to have a wonderful person as my guest today, and she's going to tell us about a project in the prison.
Right.
Debra, it's so nice to have you here.
Thank you, Lee. Thank you.
You know, I was so impressed. I want to thank you again for inviting me to see the production that you put on in the prison, and it's been a big campaign for me, you know, the idea of rehabilitation versus punishment. So that was quite an experience. I was very impressed with the quality of the material and performance. What is your background in producing something like that?
In producing something like that, it was my first time in producing something like that, but I've been a professional actor and choreographer, and I teach at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts, and I've been a writer. Mm-hmm. I started working at the prison about 2 years ago, teaching dance first.
Oh,
simply a dance class.
Expressing feelings and ideas
creative
for movement.
Exactly, creative movement. And then I started teaching acting there, and then my boss wanted me to come more often, but they didn't have the funding, so he suggested that I apply for a grant. And so he helped me write a grant, and I won a grant from the California Arts Council to direct and guide the women through an original play called From the Family, based on the cycles, the family cycles of abuse, addiction, and inherited belief systems.
And there is quite a lot of recidivism.
Yes, recidivism. Mm-hmm. There is.
And your task is to break that cycle. Is that it?
That's right. That's right. To guide the women through a process that, first of all, starts with a lot of introspection and just really taking an honest look at their lives. The work was completely autobiographical, and I started with 15 women, and I had 10, I would say, filter in and out that decided they didn't want to go that far.
Didn't want to look at those things about their lives.
Too much honesty here, you know.
I see.
And so they moved out, and I ended up with a core of 12 women that stayed with me throughout most of the 6 months. I was there twice a week for 6 months with them 6 hours a day. So it was, you know, quite involved.
Right.
Quite involved.
Right.
And we slowly got to know each other. It took a while. It took a while for them to trust me. I started with really basic exercises, like let's just sit down and write a childhood memory. And I didn't put anything on it, like make it happy, make it sad, bring out something.
Whatever you remember.
Exactly. Whatever comes to you.
Okay.
And then they would, and it was delightful what they brought forward. And then I would say, you know, this would make a great 3-person scene, or this is a monologue. This piece is a monologue. And then the next assignment was to write a monologue. I had to explain to them what a monologue was,
Mhm.
and write a monologue as a family member. And I think that is,
What do you mean how they related to the rest of the family, or their
No, no, no.
place in the family, or?
no, become the character of your mother, become your sister, become your father,
Oh,
become your aunt,
I see.
and give them a speech.
Oh, I see. I see.
So they had to get into someone else's shoes in their family,
Mhm.
and
See another point of
see
view.
another point of view. Exactly.
I see.
Exactly. And then the next assignment was to write a teenage event. I thought of that because I think the teenage years are pivotal as far as the direction one takes. The independence starts happening, and the direction one takes. There's certain events
It's
that
the
happen.
beginning of their separate life
That's right.
from the family.
Yeah, and then
That's why it's so stressful.
absolutely.
Leaving's hard to do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so then the next writing assignment was to write about leaving the family. And a lot of them did this in different ways. One of them talked about her mother being upset at her when she came home from a dance. She was 15 years old, and a boy drove her home. And she said, "You have someone to take care of you now. Don't come back."
Oh, my.
Yeah.
Mm.
And one of them wrote about leaving the family when she went to the family court of law, and her family that she had joined with her husband, who was a doctor, was ripped away from her because of her drug addiction. They came up with a lot of different angles that I didn't expect. And then the final writing assignment was to write about their new family in prison.
Mm. Oh, I wanted to ask you to kind of give an overview of that performance, because it was so nice the way it was rounded out, started out with a group scene.
Oh, right.
You describe.
Well,
that.
As I did this project, it sort of unfolded just in a very natural way. And once I got the pieces of scenes and monologues together, and it was sort of chronologically from their childhood to their adulthood, I needed to have something to tie it together. And I asked them to do the writing assignment of writing a letter from someone from the outside, from a family member from the outside. Think of someone that's written to you. What do they say? Give me a couple of excerpts. And they brought in incredible things. And so
I remember that.
Do you remember
they
that?
Were all arranged
And they came out
on
onto the stage. Yeah.
And then each one read Letter from Home.
Exactly. Yeah, just little pieces, and then we blended them together. And there were some that overlapped because they were letters from a parent or to a daughter, and so things blended in and out. It was just an orchestrated piece. And then at the end of the play, I asked them to write letters back, write back to that person
from the
from
prison.
the inside. Yes.
I
So the
see.
last, the final, the epilogue was letters to the outside.
It was beautifully structured, I thought.
Well, the beauty comes from their honesty in sharing, I think.
I asked you if you could read some of the excerpts from their original work.
Right.
And did you get their permission to do that?
Oh, yes, I did. In fact, they know about this show.
Oh.
And they were so delighted
I
that
see.
their words were going to be out in the public.
Yes.
And they gave me permission to do that. I
Good.
would like to not actually say their whole names, but I
All
will
right.
say their first names.
Fine.
And
That's fine.
no, in fact, that's very empowering for them to know that people, it's like suddenly having a letter that many, many people
To the world.
can read.
Letter to the world.
Uh-huh.
And I think that's one of the most strong desires that everyone has, to be heard. This is what I
right.
think. This is what I feel. Well, then, why don't you do some of the?
Oh, I'd love to. Yeah, I'll
excerpts from the show.
I'll read from the show. But I think also the other strong desire is the desire to create, and each of these women were starved to be creating something,
Yes.
and by their volunteering
They were
to be.
so totally into this performance. And
Yeah.
I was so impressed. As a matter of fact, I came with 2 actors, and one is also a director.
Right.
And her eyes were popping with some of the performances and some of
Right.
the material. It was really
They came a long way over that 6 months. They came into the project not sure about what it was or what they could contribute even. And by the end of the 6 months, they were so proud of their own work and their own ability to be able to share these parts of their lives that other people can say, my God, I've been doing the same thing. That happened to me.
I've been there.
I've been there.
Yes, that's
You know,
right.
I mean, it's a transformation that I've gone through as well, because when I was first asked to work in the prison, I said no for about a year. My friend asked me, and I said, I'm really not interested. And he said, oh yeah, you'd be great. You should work with the women. And finally I did, and it took me about 20 minutes to realize, this is where I need to be. This is a hungry group of people, and they have so much to offer.
They do, and they've like been through the fire.
That's right. Talk about having life experience to draw
Yes,
from.
Yes.
Each of them could write a play.
Right.
They just need someone to give them permission.
Right,
That's all I did. I
right.
gave them permission.
Well, it was just so true. All of the material and all of the performances. It
Right.
was just a basis of truth to it that was unique. And of course, they were so in love with you afterwards. It was like a love fest.
Sheesh, it's overwhelming.
Helping them do that.
Yeah, it's
helping them do that.
It's just overwhelming
Right.
to be in that environment.
Good. Well, let's hear some of their
Okay, so this
words.
is part of the opening of the play called Letters to the Inside, excerpts of family members' words. And this is Wanda. Hi, Mommy. I miss you. I've decided to go on to college. You chose by your actions to go to prison. It's not fair for me to put my life on hold and take care of my sister. Rebecca. Remember how much I love you, Mama, and that you're never alone. You're with me in spirit. Noelle. Why did Dad have to die and leave us? Why did you leave me? I wish you would hurry home. I need you. Magic, from her niece. Auntie Seal, I love and miss you very much. When are you coming home? If you don't like it there, why do you go back? Tammy, from her son. Mom, every time the phone rings, I run to answer it because I think it might be you calling. Rita, from her niece, who was also a heroin addict, writing to her aunt who's in prison because of her crimes related to her drug addiction. Auntie.
Do a high percentage of them have a drug problem?
At the California Rehabilitation Center, which is where the prison that I work at,
Yes.
most of them are there for drug-related crimes.
I see.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
And so they are getting treatment for that.
Not enough,
Not enough.
no. But,
But at
yeah.
least they have this arts project,
Yes.
which is,
Yes.
I think it's probably more therapeutic than the usual psychotherapy.
I do. I certainly believe that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not someone else telling you how to fix yourself. It's you taking a good look at yourself
And writing it out.
And writing it out.
And putting it out
and
there.
acting it out,
Yes.
or
Yes.
having someone else
That's
act
why.
out.
That's why the acting was so powerful, because they had such strong feelings about what they were saying.
Right, right.
What are some of the other excerpts?
Oh, okay. Also, I did want to say that some of them also chose not to portray their own stories, but had other members
I see.
portray it for them.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's just too close.
I see. Mhm.
So we made those choices as we went along. One of the first pieces is called Childhood Fantasy by Santana, and she said, when I was given the assignment to write a childhood memory, I chose to write the fantasy of what I would have liked my childhood to be. She wouldn't even write about her childhood. And she's the one that her mother kicked her out at 15. And she says, instead, I chose to write about what I would have liked my childhood to be. I remember my mother bringing me home from school, and she would always have milk and cookies waiting for me, and she would sit me down, and I would tell her about my day. It's a simple thing, but that was her wish.
But she never had
She
that.
never had that. And her mother actually was an addict as well. This is a piece that was written by a woman that was not in the theater project, but she had been in a previous writing project, and she gave us this monologue to use, but she did not want to perform, and it's called Chair.
Oh, I love that.
Remember Chair?
Yes.
And it was
And,
performed.
and I related to that because in some situations you're treated like part of the furniture.
Right.
And she was great.
Yes, Magic, the inmate actress, just has so much character,
Oh.
so much personality.
She's the one that the director spoke to afterwards, says, you're going to go into this profession, aren't you?
She should be. She should be
Yeah.
a comedian.
Right.
And she sat in the posture as a chair and began by saying, I sit here all day long just watching and observing what's going on. My secrets I keep within my stuffing. I wish I could help her. I understand abuse, but I have to support him, the dad. Run and hide, little friend. Run and hide behind me. I won't let anyone hurt you. And so, you know, simply by being the chair in the room that witnessed the abuse, it was very moving, very moving. And Wanda,
And the fact that she was such a great comedian didn't take away from the pathos
no,
at all.
no. We had to lighten up some of the
truth
show.
was there. No, I loved that.
Yeah, we had to lighten up some of
Yes.
it because
Right.
you can only take so much tragedy.
Exactly.
And you turn off.
Exactly.
Yeah. You know, enough. Wanda was inspired by the chair, and then later on toward the project, after we had gone through the childhood memory assignment and all of that, came late in with a poem and slipped it to me, and I said, we must put this in. And it was performed by India, who just is this magnificent looking woman, and American Indian woman, with just a simple presence, honesty. She didn't need to act, do you know what I mean? She just
Right.
spoke, and everything
Well, I
was there.
didn't feel that many of them were acting because they were just telling their stories.
Right, they were telling
was
their
so
stories, and
real.
that's the essence of good theater. Is just simple storytelling.
I know sometimes actors advise young thespians, don't let the acting show.
That's right. That's right. No acting. Stop
Right.
acting.
It's got to be real.
Uh-huh.
Well, this was so
Uh-huh.
real. I was just amazed. I really was. I
Yeah.
was so impressed.
Yeah.
You get a lot of credit for that, putting that all together.
Well, you know, it comes from their talent, though. I have my credit comes from making the decision to go and take that job.
But I think you had made it comfortable for them to talk about those things.
Right. I did.
Which are hard to talk
And
about.
it took a while. It took a while to do that. One of the pieces of writing actually came about because one of the women stayed after class was out to talk to me by herself, and she came up and said, the assignment is to do a monologue from a family member, but I've written something that I want to share. It's from my life, but could I say that it's a family member? And I thought she didn't really understand the assignment. I said, well, no, I want you to try to get into someone else's shoes. And she said, no, you don't understand. I found out that I was HIV positive 2 weeks after I got into prison. And I need to write about that. And I just hugged her, and I said, that's a great idea. Write about it as though it's someone else. That's a great idea, because she felt that she needed to protect herself. It's a very different environment being in prison. You have to protect yourself. If people know that you're vulnerable, you may be open for people taking advantage of you.
Right.
And one of the things that's needed is, I think, a greater support for HIV positive people in prison. Anyway, I'll read you a little bit of that later
All
on.
right.
But she did write a very powerful piece about her experience.
Well, read that now. Do you have
Oh
that?
yeah, I sure do.
Why
I
don't
sure
we
do. I just
hear that
brought a little excerpt from that. It was called "The Discovery," her piece, and she starts it off by saying, "I can hardly believe this has really happened to me. It replays like a memory in my head, but I remember the very moment when I got the words and the information came to me, and I just denied it, and it couldn't have been me. And how could it be me?" And she ended it by saying, "I am but a skeleton underneath my state issue. Why me? Oh God, why me? I'm HIV."
I remember that
Yeah.
one.
And it was, we actually recorded her voice because she was paroled. Before the show, before the performance, she was paroled. And another woman, we recorded her voice and another woman acted out.
Right,
The
and I
actions.
remember, I thought that was planned that way, and this was making something out of a problem.
Right.
That turned out tremendously effective, because the voice was saying the words and the woman was reacting the feelings totally in pantomime.
Absolutely.
It was great.
Yes. And
Yes.
it was the voiceover made it sound like it was her thought process.
Yes, it was
So it worked.
so theatrical. It was excellent. It was
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
One that I wanted to mention was the one about family is where you find it.
Oh yes.
Do you have
I sure do.
that one?
And do you know who wrote that? The same woman, this very same woman that I'm talking about wrote that piece.
I've been quoting that, families where you find it,
Yeah.
because with these women, it's so obvious that the family they were born into was so toxic
Absolutely.
that they needed to find another family.
I
So-
know of some women that have been paroled and gone back to their families, maybe back to children, maybe back to 4 children that they had to take care of. Once again, couldn't handle it and got back onto the drugs. Or women that have gone back to their mate, who is also an addict, and they just continue that relationship. And so
Continue the cycle.
they continue the cycle. And so sometimes it's better not to be near family. Go as far as you
Certain
can.
families are dangerous.
Right, right.
Did
but
you find that one that...
I have it right here.
Oh,
Family, family where you find it. And yes, it's a price, it's a high price that you have to pay. And yes, it's a long time before the next day. And all that you want is for someone to say, "Don't worry, baby, it'll turn out okay." So try not to feel bad and try not to cry. There are girls here who care, and they'll help you get by. You see, they're feeling lonely and oh so sad too, because they're missing their families, just like you do. So that's a piece of that. Yeah.
I'd love to
Yeah.
hear a lot of others, but let's just hear some of the letters they wrote to home. Some quotes from that.
Yeah, and at the end, I wanted to have sort of a jump off place. Let's talk about, all right, here we are now at the present place. What's in the future? So here's a few quotes from there. Honey says, "What's 3 years to a relationship like ours? Love binds stronger than any chains." Gypsy says, "Mom, thank you for finally writing to me. Your words were very important to me, especially in a place like this." And Wanda says, "Baby girl, you should go on to college. I'm so very proud of you, and thank you so much for caring for your little sister as much as you could." And Rebecca says, "Being in prison at 45 years of age is a reality that I must try to accept. My life and yours, my daughter, have been changed forever." And Santana says, "I am so happy that I am just here for today, clean and sober, not sick and wondering where I'm going to get a fix. I see that my kids have had to suffer with me, and I am so sorry for hurting them."
This is just such a magnificent project that you steered these people through, and they were so appreciative afterwards. It was just wonderful to see how much they appreciated not only you, but the experience. And I remember one of them saying, I didn't think I could do this. And we, people from the audience were complimenting them and sincerely. And she said, I never thought I could do this. And Deborah said, well, just go ahead and try.
Yeah.
And I did it. And she said, no, I'm going to try things because I don't know if I can do them or not.
That's right. And she said...
So that was a real life-changing...
She said she never finished anything. She never really completed anything, and she finished this, you know. She stayed with it.
Right.
And I think...
Till the applause at the end of the show.
Yes. And another woman said that she felt that it helped her get her personality back because she had been doing drugs for so long. It robbed her of her personality.
She didn't know who she was anymore.
No.
Right.
She had nothing to give.
Right. I wanted to ask you about the follow-up process. You know, while you have them, you know, you were able to do some quite wonderful things. And when they leave, what happens then? Is there...
I have kept in touch with one inmate who was paroled, and she wrote me a letter at the prison and told me that she was going to continue to dance. I told her that she was talented as a dancer, and she said, no one has ever told me in my life that I was talented at anything. And I've just volunteered my time in meeting with her. But as far as programs that are set up to bring the arts to inmates that are paroled, I don't know of any. I would like to be involved, maybe working with the Department of Parole, or in some way getting in touch with women that are in halfway houses. I know they can't afford to take an arts class. But if I can maybe work with some organization to keep them going, to keep them creating, to keep them getting their words out there, and it would be a wonderful way to let the public see this incredible work of theirs, and to not have inmates and prisoners be the forgotten ones.
Right.
And then people would see how important it is, rehabilitation is, to you know, let's get them
what
back.
does happen in the halfway houses or in the transition from prison, which is a totally different environment, to being in the regular community?
Well, I don't think that they have a lot of resources. In the prison, they have self-help classes like anger management. Some women are required to take certain classes because of their... And
it was just such a pleasure to have
pleasure.
you.
Thank you for being there at the prison.
Well, thank you for being there.
We hope you have found this program intellectually stimulating and that you will continue to investigate the ideas raised here. To connect with other like-minded individuals, please contact any of the dozens of free thought organizations, such as the American Humanist Association, American Atheists, the Center for Inquiry, and Atheists United. You may also email the producer directly via leebaker27@gmail.com. This program has been distributed through the courtesy of Atheists United.